What if I told you there's a new global alliance, one that's not just trying to shift the world order, but is actually gearing up for a prophesied final battle? Well, today, we're diving deep into a really complex and frankly provocative worldview from an author named Abdullah Boufim. He calls it the Vicious Quadrilateral Alliance, and we're going to break down his entire theory step by step using his exact framework.
So the core claim here is a pretty big one. It's asking us to imagine, what if a new global alliance has popped up and its agenda is, well, world domination? According to the author, this isn't some sci-fi plot. He believes it's real, and it's the central idea we're going to be unpacking.
All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the four members of this so-called vicious alliance. Then, we'll see who they're supposedly targeting. After that, we'll explore how all of this is supposedly tied to a final, prophesied battle. And then there's a huge twist: betrayal from within. We'll finish up with the author's final, pretty stark warning.
Okay, so first things first, let's meet the players. This whole theory is built on a four-part alliance that, according to the author, isn't hiding in the shadows anymore. He's arguing it's now coming right out into the open for everyone to see.
Now, the author uses this really specific and, frankly, very loaded term for the leader of the alliance, the wronged ones. The text says this is a state somewhere between the Nile and Euphrates rivers, and it's not just a member. It's positioned as the strategic head, the brains of the whole operation.
So the author wants you to picture this alliance as kind of like a single monstrous body. The wronged ones are the head, doing all the thinking. China is the powerful right arm. India is the left arm, and a state the author specifically calls Zoroastrian Iran acts as the rear guard. Each piece has a very distinct role to play in this global game.
An alliance this powerful must have a goal, right? And according to this author, that goal is crystal clear and devastating. The text lays out a very specific order of events, a step-by-step plan to completely remake the world.
So here's the claimed three-step plan for destruction. First, the alliance will supposedly make its move against the Arab states in the Middle East. Once that region is under control, the next target on the list is the United States, and the final phase of this global campaign, the total subjugation of the entire Christian world. We're talking Catholics, Orthodox, and Protestants, all of them.
And this is where things get incredibly dark. The author claims the ultimate goal here is nothing less than the total annihilation of both Muslims and Christians living in any territory this alliance controls. The threat is painted as so existential that according to the text, it will actually force these two groups, historical rivals, to unite just to have a chance at survival. Okay, this is the point where geopolitics starts to blend with end times prophecy. The author isn't framing this as just another war over land or resources. No, in his view, this is the final, prophesied showdown between good and evil.
And to really hammer home just how high the stakes are, the author makes this crucial connection. He argues that this coming conflict is the exact same event that's been described in two different faiths, what Christians call Armageddon, and what Muslims know from prophecy as Al-Malhama al-Kubra, or the Great Battle. In this theory, they are one and the same. To give you a sense of how Western leaders fit into this picture, check out this striking metaphor the text uses for Donald Trump. He's called a race rabbit. You know, the pacemaker in a race who leads for a while, thinks he's the real champion, but then just collapses before the finish line. This is meant to show that Western leaders are just unwitting pawns in a much bigger theatrical war. But wait a minute. If the big, obvious external powers are just pawns, then the author argues the real danger has to be somewhere else. And this is a huge turn in the theory. The threat isn't just outside. A massive emphasis is put on betrayal from within, on enemies who look just like allies.
And right at the heart of this whole betrayal narrative is this specific and, let's be honest, provocative label for Iran. He keeps calling it Zoroastrian Iran. Now, by using the name of Persia's pre-Islamic religion, he's making a really powerful argument that Iran's leadership isn't genuinely Islamic at all and is, in fact, a key player in this anti-Muslim alliance.
So what was Iran's supposed job in this grand plan? According to the author, its mission was to get Muslims to rise up and destabilize their own countries from the inside. But the text claims this plan completely failed. It was supposedly stopped by the youth of Sham, people from the Levant, who allegedly exposed and resisted what he calls a satanic plot.
This deep mistrust extends to pretty much all politicians in the Muslim world. The author uses this really powerful metaphor to make his point absolutely clear.
Counting on any politician for help is not just pointless, it's dangerous. It's like trying to get honey from the fangs of a venomous snake.
And this leads to one of the most serious allegations in the whole text. It claims that when you see public figures, leaders, scholars, who used to criticize Iran and then all of a sudden do a 180, it's because they've been compromised. The author suggests they've been blackmailed, maybe with money, powerful positions, or even incriminating videos.
So, all these claims of betrayal from within, they all build up to the author's final point. This last section is a direct warning to readers who the author believes are completely and tragically mistaken about who their real enemy is.
And the author really doesn't mince words here. He admits, yes, the Christian West is a threat, but, he argues, this vicious quadrilateral alliance is 100 times more dangerous. And why? Because he claims it has the will and the power to ultimately kill and burn 100 times more Muslims.
And that really brings us to the author's ultimate warning, which is aimed at what he calls naivete. He argues that anyone who is cheering for the rise of this new Eastern alliance, thinking it's a good thing for countering the West, is making a fatal mistake and completely misunderstanding the true nature of the threat they're facing.
So, as we finish our look into this text by Abdallah Boufim, we're kind of left with a bigger question, aren't we? Whether you buy into this worldview or you dismiss it completely, the fact that a theory this detailed even exists is pretty significant. It makes you wonder, what does a perspective like this tell us about the power of these huge, all-encompassing stories to help us make sense of our world, especially when everything feels so uncertain?